people are kind of quite starstruck.
Yes.
Oh, let that champion, let's
Yes.
breed with that.
Yes.
And everyone breeds that dog.
Yes.
And I've always noticed with you that you will see a really good dog and you'll be like, oh yeah, but I prefer its brother, or I prefer its father, or whatever. And that says to me that you really actually understand what you're trying to do, rather than someone who's like, that dog won the championship, I'm going to breed my dog because I'm going to win the championship. And it never really works, does it?
No, I think a lot of the people that are within the sport nowadays haven't got the time or the understanding of how breeding works.
Hi, I'm Charlie Thorburn. Welcome to The Dog Father. The aim of this podcast is to look at the wider world of dogs and how it's impacted people's lives and businesses. I've been training dogs for 25 years and I love them dearly, and I'm hoping to share some of this with you. Welcome to the episode. A bit unusual today. We're at the game fair down at Ragley Hall, and I'm privileged to be sitting next to Jeremy Organ, who has been a spaniel breeder, mainly Springer breeder and trainer for
40 years.
40 years. I was going to say 40 years. I didn't want to get it wrong. I've always modelled myself on Jeremy, hence we're wearing basically the same clothes, but I need to either give him a hat or get a hat off him. So Jeremy, thank you for joining me. What I want to talk about is just you and dogs. So where it started, why it started, where it's been, where it's gone, where it's going, or so you grew up in Cheltenham?
Yeah, I grew up on a farm, on the family farm, and basically I was very much involved with riding to hounds. Hounds were and hunting were my love.
So hounds was what you got it. What got into dogs?
Yeah, watching dogs actually, or hounds working on scent and hunting. But that still was my main love when I went to college. I went off to agriculture college, and it wasn't really until friends of mine at college said, why don't you come and have a shoot around the family farm, and we'll borrow Dad's dogs and gamekeeper's dogs and we'll go off and have some fun. So there's me, stood there, and birds are flying, and bang, oh yes, I've shot that one, bang, yes, I've shot another one. And by the end of the day, they come out to clear up the birds. So, well, where's your birds? Oh, there's 2 or 3 behind me. And of course, they weren't there because obviously I wasn't a very good shot, so I wounded them or they missed altogether. So all my friends with their dad's, father's dogs, gamekeeper's dogs, were carrying all these birds that they'd shot. And I thought, something's got to change.
And you were what, 18?
Yeah. And I thought,
you were like, I can't be outdone by my mates. Your alpha male kicked in. It was like, oh.
And I thought, well, I can't be outdone by this. So my parents said, look, we'd like to buy you a present when you leave college. What would you like? And I said, I want a Springer Spaniel. And I'd met Jill by this time, and her father was a very big into shooting and ran his own shoots and farming and had Spaniels and Labradors all his life. And he said, look, Jeremy, the first thing you must remember is you don't go and see and buy from the first litter. Just look at several litters and off you go and buy what you think
still good advice. Still good advice today, I would say, don't you?
Very good advice until we go and have a look at the first litter and bought one each.
Bought one anyway, okay.
Now, I knew nothing about Springers. I thought all Springers were the same, they're liver and white, and they black and white as well, and they find stuff and make life easy for you. But I didn't actually realise how well she was bred, which was wonderful. We still have now, I don't know how many generations, but we still have a direct line back to the first bitch, born in 1981.
Do you?
So,
that's long. That's
a lot of lines.
Well, I'm 45. I was born in 1980.
God.
So it's 44 years ago. So that's a good...
44 years ago, yeah, that's right. So I have had Spaniels for 44 years, so my calculation at 40 years has just been optimistic.
That's what happens if you go, it's a few years ago. No, it's 8 years ago.
Yeah.
I've got a child starting at school. I'm like, God, I feel like he's still a baby. Yeah.
I know when things do move on. So my first Spaniel, she lived with me. She lived in the house. She went on the farm every day. She did everything with me. She would retrieve just about every species in season, out of season. Where did you
learn though? Because there was no YouTube. There was no.
No, there was a book.
Oh, you just took her shooting.
Yeah, Peter Moxon's book.
Peter Moxon. I mean, you talk to anybody.
Yeah.
Like my age or older, it's like Peter Moxon. I don't think anyone else wrote a book, did they?
Oh yeah, there's loads of other books, but this one you could understand. It was in layman's terms. I did read Keith Erlandson's book, who I think it was an amazing character, knowledge of everything. I read his book and couldn't understand it. And wind direction and all this, what's that mean? You just let your dog go and hope for the best.
Hope for the best.
And I was always chasing a spaniel rather than actually working a spaniel. And I think that's the way it was.
I'm still doing that.
So, that was my sort of first introduction to gun dogs. I did have a dabble at training collies with an old shepherd on the farm, very unsuccessfully, but it sort of started me understanding how to work with dogs and their minds. And obviously this first bitch we had,
What was she called?
she was called Jip.
Jip.
Jip, yeah. And so anyway, we bred from her to a local picking up dog because you hear, as I was growing up, you're on the local shoots beating and they say, oh, you don't want to use those trial stuff, they're no good, they just, they're robots.
You still hear the same thing today, don't you?
Yeah, well, they don't dare say it to me anymore. So basically...
Trialing rubbish, showing what a good working dog.
So I used the local picking up a dog, a black and white one, because I thought, well, I'll try these black and white ones, and anyway, it was a disaster. We kept a liver and white bitch, wouldn't retrieve. Couldn't understand. Now, our bitch was a very strong retrieving bitch. She'd pick up a pencil off the floor or a piece of paper and give it to you without even being asked. She just wanted to please. So anyway, basically, I decided to give that one to my mother. So she went off and lived in a big house.
Just as a pet?
As a pet.
Okay.
And then we thought, well, we've got to do something. We've got to change this. So I went to a field trial champion, which was, it was a Badgercourt muffin.
Badgercourt were, they were sort of predating me, but I remember when I was first getting into dogs, Badgercourt was, a lot of them were black and white, from what I remember.
There was
every dog, in the mid to late 90s, when I first got into sort of beating and stuff, people were like Badgercourt, and they were all black and white. But I mean, that might have just been a couple of famous dogs. I don't know.
Latter end of Peter's sort of time in the sport, he had a Badgercourt Warlord that had sired a lot of black and whites.
Okay.
Then he had Black Ben of Badgercourt, who also sired a lot of black and whites. So I think latter end of his last 2 or 3 dogs before he fell ill were black and whites.
So what sort of age would he have? I mean, was he at that point? Was he sort of in his 70s, 60s?
No, unfortunately, Peter died very young. He was a man of very few words, unlike myself, and he either liked you or he didn't, and he let you know he didn't like you.
Okay.
He was
That's quite helpful, though, isn't it?
A really good judge. Yeah, incredibly good judge.
I think your wife's got that skill, isn't she?
Very good spaniel man. Very good spaniel man.
She's watching.
Never had many dogs. Never had many dogs. Now, Badgercourt was one of the main...
It's quite prolific.
Oh, my God, it was. Because of Badgercourt Druid, and then you've got Badgercourt Moss. You've got
Moss,
so many
Moss
that
was
produced,
in my original...
Yeah, and I'm not surprised. And so anyway, basically, Peter's name was incredibly well known throughout the world. But Peter fell ill, died I think he was 59 when he died.
Okay.
Just retired. And it was a real shame because he'd sort of wanted to retire young so he could spend the rest of his life with his spaniels. 3 years after retiring, he fell ill, and
so he wasn't a dog. Was he a keeper? What was his role?
No. He was a scientist. He was a chemist by trade.
Oh right, okay.
And he ran. Now you might know a chap called Michael Wigan that writes for the Field magazine and stuff. Well, he worked for Michael Wigan.
Sorry, Michael Wigan.
Michael Wigan was had a hop processing company in Worcestershire, and that's where Peter.
So he just
trade.
Amateur breeder trainer.
Yeah.
I mean, but as in those days, most were. I mean, there were. I mean, you've done this for a living. You've done gun dog. You've been a gun dog trainer for a living. You then kind of slightly jacked it in because you got fed up with the people.
Well, I think it was the boarding kennels got busier and
busier.
busier.
Then you've been boarding. You've had a boarding kennel and you've just done your dog's training as a sort of as and when it suits you. Is that?
I think I found that as I think we all do as trainers, can be quite frustrating with some people that come along. Some clients come along and you're going over the same territory time and time again. Every time they come, they've done no work.
Yeah.
And it got to the stage where we were very busy, and I dropped it when we had a lady working for us for quite a few years who she also fell ill and passed away. So I haven't done anything really for about 3 or 4 years.
Okay.
But things may change. I'm looking to do more for ourselves again, I think.
So you got your first Springer, you bred it, and it was a disaster. You bred it again.
Right. Yes, you're right. So we kept a daughter by Badgercourt Muffin. And I had no interest in trials because all I wanted to do was rough shoot and
show off to your friends that you could pick up your own birds.
Yeah, and find them as well in the beginning. Yeah. So basically, Alan Gwynn, who lived in Wales in Swansea, who actually stood the dog at stud. It was made up in Scotland, sent down to Alan Gwynn, and Alan sort of sowed the seed for trials. He was a very, very successful trialling man, the Wimmelwood line, and
this was because your dog had you'd bought a dog with a great pedigree, and he saw the pedigree and saw it was quite a capable dog.
Well, I think he thought I'd ruined her anyway.
Yeah.
But and so I kept this daughter from her, and I wasn't interested in trialing, but obviously I wanted to try and do a better job. And anyway, it was the fact is that on one of the shoots that we used to beat on, they used to host an open stake for the Welsh and English counties. And I went along to watch, and Alan Gwynn was running a dog, plus a lot of very well-known people, such as the Badgercourt man, Peter Coons, and a lot of really well-known people I'd only ever heard about. And I watched this trial, and I knew nothing about trials. And I said to, there was a guy that was on the shoot there who thought his spaniels were better than anybody else's. And he said, I'm going to challenge you to this. He said, next year we'll both enter a dog in this. You've got a pup, I've got a pup. Not knowing it was an open stake, you have to sort of qualify to get there. Anyway, I thought, I'm going to take the challenge on. And I then ran in a working test, and I actually won that one. And I ran in a couple of other...
And you're sort of in your, what, early 20s?
Early 20s then, yeah.
And what are you doing the rest of the time?
Farming. So
And this is your family
on the
farm,
family
where
farm.
you still live?
Yeah, well, basically, by that time, I'd moved Jill and I were managing an estate up in Scotland, in Cirencester, sorry, just outside Cirencester. And so
we're getting dreams and reality mixed up here. Cirencester, I want to be in Scotland. Oh no, sorry, it was Cirencester.
Scotland was my dream. You know, when you're young at college, what are you going to do? Well, I'm going to manage a big estate in Scotland, and I'm going to be like Alan Turner from Emmerdale Farm with a Land Rover with the name of the estate written down the side and driving around in my tweeds all day long. But it never happened because a father wanted me to come home. So anyway, I going back to my spaniels and what we were doing. So we were surrounded by shoots because we're next to Misden Park. So we were surrounded by pheasants drifting onto our place. And I put a few down and fed a few and stuff. And I trained her on what we had on the farm. It wasn't a shoot as such, and on ours. And so anyway, I ran her in 2 trials my first season, and it was a disaster. I was disqualified in both. But a chap called John Cook from the Flintwood Gun Dogs, you may have come across. He's been in it for about 100 years.
Okay.
And he lived in Bristol. He said, come and see me down in Bristol. He said, you've got a nice bitch, but you're just not getting it right. So went to see him, and he ripped me to pieces.
For lessons, basically.
Yeah, and he never gave lessons, and this was unheard of anybody.
Okay.
He absolutely tore me to pieces, and I felt about that big.
Okay.
And he was talking about my dog, you know, you don't run somebody down that much. Well, he did. So I drove home after my lesson. He wouldn't take any money. I was really polite to him, of course. I didn't let him know that I wasn't happy. So drove home, and I was analysing what he had said, thinking he knows nothing, and got a little bit further home and still knows nothing. Got even further home. By the time I started to really break it down, I thought, yeah, he's actually, yeah, that's right.
That's right, yeah.
By the time I got home, I thought, do you know what, that guy, that's perfect. Absolute perfect. Yep, I'm going to work on it. So next time he saw me was at, I was running in a trial at Badminton Estate, and it was at the time when we had referees. They've got rid of
What's a referee?
Well, basically you have your 2 judges, and the referee would be there to just be the mediator, or the chairman, if you such, to have the final decision on
okay.
what. So if something was questionable, he could step in. So
Well, like someone was taking a backhander.
well, whatever used to happen, or what does. So
I wouldn't know anything about whatever used to happen.
So,
Okay.
so basically, anyway, so there were two judges who, unfortunately, well, one's in France, Chris Sutcliffe, who emigrated to France, and then we had Dr. Noel Jones, who later became a really good friend of ours, who's passed now. Anyways, so running it under these 2 judges, I finished the 2 runs, which was first for me because of my 3rd time out.
This wasn't. Where are we at in the? Someone placed a bet with you.
Yeah, well that never happened because I realised that I had to progress to that stage.
Okay.
So that never happened.
So we sort of surpassed that. That never happened, and we surpassed.
He never had any interest at all.
Okay.
It was just him. Yeah. So, but it actually got
It was
me,
a sort of
it
a
got me
whiskey-fueled kind of
Yeah.
end of the shoot. Let's do this.
and it got me going.
Let's climb Everest
and I
kind
thought,
of thing.
You challenge me, and I will always rise to the challenge. So anyway, yeah, I ran her in this trial, and she won on ice, and I could not believe it. And I was stood at the back.
So just layman terms, winning on ice
Means that you win without a runoff, so you're not actually being.
it's not like a kind of we're not sure who's going to win. It's just like you're the clear winner. Good luck.
Let's just put
Go
these 2
ahead.
together. And
Gold medal, no question. Usain Bolt sort of stuff.
Yeah, so that was a wonderful thing, because don't forget it was my 3rd trial, and they called out certificate of merits, and I was none of those. Read out a reserve, which I think was 4th in those days, and then 3rd and 2nd. And I thought, well, I finished anyway.
Great.
And then they must have called out my name, and I didn't hear. So they called me again, and this chap next to me said, "You Jeremy Organ?" I thought, "Yes." He said, "Well, they've just called you for
You've
first
just won.
place." I said, "Yeah, right."
Trying to wind you up and get you to go up there. Oh,
yeah.
that's me. No.
No, not you.
Not you.
We haven't done the raffle yet. So anyway, they called me, and I went up, and I was early 20s, so I was up there. Got to see them, and they said, "You've won." I shook the judge's hands and thank or whatever. And they said, would you like to say a few words? Well, of course, I didn't know what I had to say. I said, what do you want me to say? And they said, just say thank you. And I said, oh, thank you very much. And that was it. And I knew nothing, none of the formalities. So anyway, everybody shook my hand and congratulated me and all the rest of it. Rachel Goslin from the Park Makeup fame. My God, she was like the district commissioner from a pony club.
Yeah, I was going to say, she probably was that as well, wasn't she?
God, probably.
I mean, I remember Edward Martin being scared of her, and Edward wasn't scared. Yeah. Edward wasn't scared. Edward and Elizabeth weren't really scared of. Elizabeth especially wasn't scared of anybody. She would tell everybody exactly what it was, which was like, "Oh, Rachel Gosling's coming. We've got to get the best china out."
God, Rachel was she? My God, she was scary. So anyway, Rachel said, "Young man, come here." Oh my God, what have we done?
Barbara Woodhouse equivalent.
Oh my God,
to
yes.
kind of
absolutely.
to people who aren't into who are listening, who aren't watching, who aren't into sort of specific gun dogs, but everybody knows Barbara Woodhouse, and she was the more sort of niche Barbara Woodhouse in the spaniel world.
Very much so, and she's been incredibly successful over the years. So she said, "Young man, come here. I want to have a word." She said that was the most disgusting speech I've ever heard ever. She said,
"I had to knock your like thunder. You just have one, and that does speech, and I'm getting another bollocking, like the guy you went down who pulled you apart with your dog training."
That's right. So anyway, I said, "Oh,
resilience, Jeremy. It builds dog training builds resilience."
Well, you never forget, do you? Well, you should never forget. So anyway, she said to me, she said, "You must say on behalf of my fellow competitors, because without them, you wouldn't be here. You wouldn't be winning today without your fellow competitors." She said, "You must then thank the host. You must then thank the gamekeeper. You must thank the guns, and you must thank the judges. You know, you've got to thank all these people for and the Charles Secretary for putting on this show for you to have your little glory day."
And you're like, I'm a 22-year-old who's still walking around with my hand down my trousers. Sorry, I got to lower the tone a bit. but yeah, I mean.
So it taught me a lesson, and it's made me realise that. And that's the sort of thing I think we're losing. People aren't prepared to sort of tell anybody anymore in the sport because they won't listen to you. They say, "Oh, for God's sake, shut up and go away."
But that's not this. That's
life.
That's society, sadly, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. This life. Everything's changed.
I mean, that's a whole different podcast, Jeremy.
Yeah.
Let's not get onto that.
Anyway, so basically, I came home and said to Jill. Obviously, I was very excited that I'd won this trial, and I do remember driving with the trophy on the passenger seat and it was seat belted in, so it wouldn't fall.
So it didn't fall.
Very. When you're driving through Cirencester, and obviously we didn't have bypasses in those days, just driving through the centre, and you come up to the traffic lights, and you know people are looking at you and go, "He's just won a trial." You just feel so elated that you just won your first trial, and that will live with me forever. So anyway, I basically said to Jill,
and this dog was Edgegrove something, was it?
Edgegrove Teak.
Edgegrove Teak.
My first...
Because the first one was something of Edgegrove. You bred from her.
Yeah, that was Teak.
Failed, bred from her again, and you had your first Edgegrove dog.
Yeah.
So your first dog that you bred and kept was also your sort of starting dog that you won a trial with, and that line is still going.
Still with me now.
And do you know how many generations?
I haven't actually.
Jill, do you know how many generations?
It's in. Pardon? 7?
No, like a dozen plus.
Oh my God, we're probably about 15 or 16 now. I mean, that's a long time, 40 years of breeding.
Because if you even if it's like 4, even if they're 4,
yeah,
you know, you're 40 years ago, 4, that's 10 minimum, but the chances are it's more. I mean, we're on, you know, I'm a mere whippersnapper to you, Jeremy, in terms of my time I've been doing this. So we're 25 years, our Labrador Springer and Cocker line, and we're on 9, 10, and I think we're 12. Like that's our sort of generation.
We're I mean, I haven't ever really worked to that.
But yeah.
It's
So on that note, so I did an interview with someone recently, and they've got I'm claiming for them. They're far too sort of gentlemanly and old school to make the statement, but I'm claiming for them they've got the oldest line of Labradors in the world because they can trace it back 160 years. To Labradors that came off the boat. Who is
Buccleuch?
No, outstrip Buccleuch because they lost their line. Buccleuch and Malmesbury they all lost their line. This family got one off the 2 dogs at the same time, and they've kept them going, and they've got a pedigree book in their home which is 100 years old.
Wow.
And they can trace the dogs back another 60 years from that.
And they've had that line continuation all the way through.
Mother to daughter. No one else has done that. And I mean, I've known this family. I've trained dogs for them. I've bred dogs for them, and I didn't know that was. But is there anybody that you know in the spaniel world who is like been doing it significantly longer than you, mother to daughter, still got the lines?
What I will say is this is what's changed within the spaniel world of trialling. I can't speak for outside of the trialling world because unfortunately, you know, I'm not in connection with some of their bloodlines. But in the trialling world, let's just take that trial that I won in badminton. I think out of the 16 competitors there, I would have said probably there were about 8 or 9 kennels, not professional kennels, but kennels that had lines that they could trace back for generations.
Yeah.
Peggy Pratt was there from the Park Maple line.
Yeah.
Rachel Goslin from the Brick Close line. Rachel Goslin from the Park Maple line. We had Jack Davis from the Gowner. We had Jack Davey from the Withenwood. We had Peter.
So what you mean is that whole concept of like bloodlines is sort of not the thing anymore?
No, because you could go to a trial and not even look at the way the dog was bred on the paper, you know, on the running order, and you can say, is that a Brick Close or is that a Park Maple? They all had distinctive characteristics.
Yeah, but in the same way, I go to shoots or I see dogs at game fairs, and I'm like, where'd that dog come from? They go, oh, I got it from my friend. Oh, who's your friend? And they say their friends, and I'm like, yeah, my dog's grandfather.
Yeah, but you can pick up your lines because you've been specifically breeding your type of dog all these years. Even if you can go back 5 or 6 generations, they have a characteristic. If you're doing your job right, you can pick up your traits and characteristics that you keep within your line. And now what's happened within the trialling world now, we haven't got those old school people that were either professional gun dog trainers, professional dog handlers for their boss, or you had retired people that were been doing this for generations. We had a very different type of person that was doing it in those days, and they kept specific lines. A lot of them would never be sold. You know, they would keep them in their bloodlines for generations and breed from. And you wouldn't necessarily see them in the trialling world. Their bitch lines sometimes never came in the trialling world. You know, you'd never see them, and they would never sell their dogs. And so you could really see a distinct type if they use their stud dogs.
And why do you think that's? I mean, because that's still the same in. I mean, this family with the Labradors,
yes.
That's still the same as what I do.
Yes.
You've still got to continue in line. I mean, we had a client turn up the other day who got a dog from me 19 years ago. They walked down the kennels and they were like, God, I mean, any one of these red Labradors could be mine. Any one of these red Labradors girls could be mine. They're like, she died 4 years ago or 3 years ago, whatever. And they looked and they were like, they're the same.
And
You're producing the same thing because I've got an idea of what I'm trying to produce. And when it slips, I bring in a dog.
Yep.
But why do more people not think like, why do more people not think like that? What is this sort of, because in my view, from the outsider's point of view, and I'm not just talking about spaniels, I'm talking about general breeding and like in general, is people are kind of quite starstruck. Yes. Oh, let that champion, let's breed with that. Yes. And everyone breeds that dog.
Yes.
And I've always noticed with you that you will see a really good dog and you'll be like, oh yeah, but I prefer its brother or I prefer its father or whatever. And that says to me that you really actually understand what you're trying to do rather than someone who's like, that dog won the championship, I'm going to breed my dog because I'm going to win the championship. And it never really works, does it?
No, I mean, the thing is, this is what's happened is I think a lot of the people that are within the sport nowadays haven't got the time or the understanding of how breeding works.
But why do you think that is though?
Because they've not come from a country shooting, farming type background.
Do you think farming is do you think sort of that historic
connection,
breeding cattle for generations, breeding horses for generations, breeding dogs for generations?
Yeah.
Do you think that's slightly gone in the dog world?
I wouldn't say it's completely
gone. And people are
gone.
A bit faddier.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's completely gone because you'll still have people that really want to do the job properly. They understand how things work. But most of the people now, they want to go and buy a dog to go and win trials. It doesn't matter how it's bred. It doesn't matter whether it's got health tests or not. I just want to win trials. So they're going to use the current championship winning dog. Now, whether it's the best dog in the country or not, it happened to be on that day in the judge's view, and they're going to use it. So we saturate our bloodlines with that dog's genes. And then they put, the problem we have in the spaniel working world now, in the trialling world, the gene pool is incredibly small, getting smaller, much, much smaller. When there's a fashionable dog that, produces good stuff, everybody goes to it. So everybody flies off to that bloodline. They're using that bloodline, so then they've got to now look for another bloodline. And because they haven't got the understanding of how to line breed or how to breed to type, they would just go and use another dog that's just won the championship. So they've got all these lovely, and they advertise 5 or 6 championship winning dogs in this pedigree. Well, whoopee do. There's no lines in there.
There's no consistency.
No, because I've come from pedigree farming background.
So what did you?
I had pedigree. I was running the pedigree pigs for my father.
Pedigree pigs.
He'd been in it for generations before.
So what kind of pigs?
large whites and Durocs, and we
Large.
have multiplication units producing us the hybrid females from the landrace.
Okay.
Father then moved in 85, moved in when we were actually managing 85, 86 I said, I can't remember now, moved into pedigree sheep. We sold the dairy herd and moved into pedigree sheep.
Oh, but you had dairy cows before?
We had dairy. Yeah, we weren't pedigree, but we had Holstein cross British Friesians to have a type rather than.
But whether they're pedigree or not, you've still got that kind of, you've got that heritage of like taking a line and trying to create what you're trying to create. Whereas, so what I see from the world now is the way I look at it is when I'm breeding a dog, I need it to be healthy because that's just the right thing to do. But I also need it to kind of tick a few other boxes. And if it doesn't, you've got to be brutal sometimes and go, that's not. And this is why one of the reasons I'm people say, you know, you don't use your dogs at stud or you don't really have stud dogs. And one of my problems is if someone comes to me with a dog and I don't like it, I'll be like, shouldn't breed off your dog. And that, you know, like you getting a dressing down about how shit your dog was from the chat, you know, it doesn't make you very popular.
It wasn't the dog that was shit, it was me.
Yeah, sure. but I think there's too much just kind of like, I mean, I get people saying, oh yeah, I want to continue the line. And I'm like, I look at them, I'm like, what? I actually asked them, I say, what does that mean to you? Oh, she's a great dog. But did you know her mum and dad? Did you know her sisters? Did you know? And I think we're in a lucky position that, we're in the position where because we keep a number of puppies, if not entire litters, ourselves, we train them, we see them till they're a minimum of a year old. Yeah. We really know what that litter. So next time round, we're like, that was a great litter. Or next time round, we're like, yeah, one of them was fab. And if we just kept that one, I'd have been like, awesome. But the other 6 were useless or soft or too boisterous or whatever. And I think probably that's what, just going back, just trying to pick into what you were talking about, that sort of old school, guys who are gamekeepers and they're laird, basically the laird or the we're at Ragley Hall, the boss who lived in the big house, as we would call it in Scotland. He would fund it. So they were his.
Absolutely.
And the gamekeeper would run these dogs in trials and manage the kennels. Yeah. And I'm sure there would be some lairds who would just be like, that's bad dog, shoot it, quite brutal. And then some of them, the gamekeeper might have had more input, but there was this sort of continuation and there wasn't a sort of financial issue. There wasn't an issue of space. There wasn't that, oh, we can't keep 3 dogs. Yeah. We're like, well, we'll just get the lad. In those days, it was like, we'll get the lad from the village to come and muck out the kennels at 6 a.m. before he goes to school and give him Throckmorton's Hate Me. I suppose there was kind of more of that. So there was more ability for people to do more of what I do, I guess.
Yeah, no,
but on a sort of personal level, because that's my kind of end goal is to do what I do now, but without it being commercial. So I want to just be able to breed my dogs, keep them, and then decide this is the one we're going to keep because we are going to breed off it because the other 5 girls that we kept out the litter are all good, but this is the best. And then they go and to wherever, we sell them or we give them away or whatever. But we're very much doing it from a personal point of view rather than me slightly chasing my tail going, oh, it's a really good dog, but this guy's just come along and, you know, he's going to fly over to America on his jet and like, oh, he knows a few rich people and they're going to buy dogs. I'm constantly torn with that. And I've made a few mistakes where I've sold a dog that I shouldn't have sold. I mean, the best mistake I didn't make was Rum. You remember my original Red Labrador Rum? Back in 2004, I think. So probably very early on when I knew you, when Rum was about about 2 or 3, an American guy on a grouse moor offered me £20,000 or $20,000 for Rum, which, I mean, now is a lot of money for a dog, but then was off, and I had nothing. I was driving around in a 20-year-old Hilux pickup. I lived off Fray Bentos pies.
You've done very well.
And he won't even know what a Fray Bentos pie is. He's just laughing because he thinks I'm ridiculous. I lived off Fray Bentos pies, and the glass of water on my bedside table would be frozen on a winter's morning if when I woke up because it didn't have heating. And I'm not like
no,
but I said no, and I'm very, because that dog was awesome. And if I'd done that, I probably wouldn't have what I have now.
I was going to say, would you be where you are now? See, it's very hard to turn something like that sort of financial input down when you need it. But I do think the thing going back to the breeding, what we have within the trialling world. I'm going on to the trialling world because they seem to be the mostly used stuff within the breeding
program. It's also your field because it's what you've done for.
And you find that like we were saying, that people follow down a certain path, and that it's got to the stage where the 70% of the trialing dogs out there have got similar bloodlines, and they are putting those to similar female lines. But that's what we don't have, distinct female lines where they're so mixed up with everybody's breeding. If you ask somebody to define a proper genuine line breeding pedigree, they couldn't do it, because to do a proper line breeding program now, you have to. I've said to people, to do a proper job, to line breed in your females, because obviously your females plays a much bigger part than a male. So let's say
you say obviously that's, and I agree with you.
yes.
Well, I agree to a certain degree. I think some stud dogs are very prolific in what they throw.
I'm going to come on to that,
Okay.
but that is rare. They are rare. When you get a good one, you need to look after that. That's are. But then, like a female can pass on her quality genes to her sons and her daughters, whereas a male can only pass on his quality genes to his daughters. Can't do it to the sons. But you will find the odd stallion dog that can seem to, doesn't matter what bitch you put into, will produce some outstanding stock that follow that type.
We've got our old boy at the moment, Hades, is that. I mean, you could literally put him to the ugliest thing that someone calls a Labrador you've ever seen.
And
he's a traditional, good-looking dog. And, you know, and they come out calm, level-headed and good-looking. And I've never had, and he's had quite a lot of puppies, not as many as Rum, but he's had a good number of puppies. And I've never had an ugly puppy off Hades.
No.
You just see them as puppies, like Hades puppies, because they're calm, they're chunky. And as you say, whereas I had another dog, really lovely red Labrador, that I was all a bit wishy-washy, and actually I didn't keep him because I had a few litters and I was like, you're really not throwing yourself at all, you're not adding to anything, you're a lovely dog, you're going to do much better having a great life in a nice family home, doing your thing, being a working dog.
And I think it's as important to try and keep your strong dam lines, because the problem being is when you have a strong dam line, you can generally put them to whatever you want to carry on that line, but often you've got to be picking the daughters to carry on that strength. Because if you're lucky enough to have a dog, we had one many years ago called Laddie, which was Rose Hickory, and he could put his markings on the puppies. We've still got all his stuff now. It's got that same distinct markings, and it doesn't matter how many generations away. But I've never had one before or since that can just stamp his mark, stamp his mark, stamp his mark.
That's interesting, yeah. So just going back to, we've talked about how the people have changed. How have the actual dogs changed? So go back many years ago, and if I'm right, when springers and cockers became separate, it was 21 inches at the withers, and below was a cocker and above was a springer. So they're basically the same dogs, and they decided let's breed smaller ones to be cockers. And so they've gone smaller. But 21 inches is a big dog. Like we've got the odd springer. We've got one springer now, Ash's dog Lemon, who's 21 inches. My old dog Moss was 21 inches. I just sold a boy. He was probably that. But I mean, these days, 21 inches, a big springer.
Spaniel.
And to say that was the differential. Obviously, it's, you know, that's where it started and it's gone. And that was long before, you know, you got into that. But when I remember Laddie, your dog Laddie, he was a much bigger dog than you see mostly now.
Yeah, and Moss, he was.
And Moss. So would you say that I suppose I'm looking for more confirmation as what I believe, but I'm also happy to be told I'm completely talking absolute crap. But I would say springers, especially competition springers, have got smaller and smaller.
They have,
and slightly kind of thinner build. Like I like my Labradors and springers and cockers to be a leg in all four corners. Prop forwards for the rugby team. Boom. Whether they're a male cocker, a male springer, or a male lab, I want them to be like that. Girls, I'm happy them to be a bit finer as long as they're not too fine. Because I like a certain thing. But would you say there was a point where suddenly springers changed? Would you say they've just gradually got like that? Like what's the
right? Well, there was a big change. A big change sort of happened. We used to have two major playing bloodlines in the sport, which was Ritex and Badgercourt. Everybody used to talk about those two as the main, although there were lots of others around them.
On that, so Ian Openshaw is a bit older than you?
Yes.
Quite a bit older than you? I don't know how old he is.
I don't know. I think probably 4 or 5 years older than me, maybe.
Okay, so not significantly, but he started this at 16, 17,
I think he was 15 when he went to work for Mr. Naylor of the Ritex fame.
But was that Ritex line, it preceded Ian Openshaw?
It used to be John. I think, was it a chap called John McQueen used to be the professional dog handler there, and Ian apparently.
But Mr. Naylor was the guy, the laird, as it were. And so there was a guy who had this line going back. So Ritex is essentially
It's been around
quite a long old line, yeah.
Longer than Ian. But anyway, so basically, back in the day, it was those two major lines, and Ian used to do most of his competing up north on white grass and rushes.
Like around me.
Yeah.
My part of the world. Rushes and
you don't need
rag
bigger,
heather
heavy, that's it.
and long grass and stuff.
So you don't really need as big a dog. You want a faster, flashier dog. Badgercourt was mainly, Peter was Worcestershire. So it
Worcestershire,
used to be,
Gloucestershire, bramble bushes.
yeah, and you had a much squarer, stronger, big,
A bramble basher, as we would have called them, I would have called them when I was
And then he
younger.
said anything lower than the Midlands used to be the bramble bashers. Anything above the Midlands was the whitegrass dogs.
Okay, that's interesting.
And that used to be the way. People didn't travel so far to the trials in those days. They'd stick within their sort of regions, and we'd all stick below the Midlands and all brambles, heavy brambles and stuff. So things started to change when the style of the dog that Ian Openshaw, Ritex Kennels, was producing was a different type of style to the Badgercourt. It was very much what we see today. Well, it is what we see today. The Badgercourt ones were the old-fashioned square, not as stylish, although some would say they were. They weren't as stylish as what we're having today, and they were a heavier boned animal. And basically what's happened is everybody started then using different people's dogs up north, putting them on there, which is very sensible to mix the two together to try and not go down the same path. And they started looking at these much faster, stylish dogs that were winning the championships, and so they started using those stud dogs. We've lost the heavy bramble championship grounds. We just don't have them anymore.
Okay.
So most of our championships was on lighter ground. Well, when you've got 65, 70 dogs qualified, it's very hard to have a woodland championship for 3 days.
Yeah.
And we did go to Blenheim this year, which is an amazing ground, and it was very hard work for them to put the 3 days on as they did.
Just because there isn't the space.
No, whereas you go on the moorland, you can just keep
there's
going
endless space.
Endless space. So that, and of course that time of year we got back in January, we get worse weather up there, so it's very hard for the keepers to hold the birds. So the type of dog has changed. It's a faster, lighter framed, whiter, more stylish dog than we used to have a yesteryear. We've all sort of adapted that type of dog now within our breeding program. I love to try and get the size up all the time, but it keeps going smaller with the stud dogs. We have a young dog now that I'm looking to run next season, and he is, again, what would he be? He'd be up a sort of, I don't know what weight he is now. I think last time he was weighed, he was about 21 kilos at about 9-10 months. So he's going to be a big, strong dog. He's now 14 months now. He's just had all his x-rays, hips and elbows.
Oh, so he's much bigger than your
Yeah, he's bigger than
dog.
Buzz. Yeah.
Sorry?
He's bigger than Buzz. He's back up to
because these two
size.
puppies here are Buzz puppies.
Yes, I've already I've had a little.
So
look at those.
so your new young sort of protege is kind of more how you used to.
Well, because although Buzz was the smallest of the three dogs that I've seen, and he is producing generally. He's not decreasing size. He's maintaining size, but I want to try and get bigger again. I want to get back to what I had, but not losing the style and the finesse that they have. But anyway, I do think that's what's changed. The type of spaniel has changed. People used to like the working, heavyweight Badgercourt type.
Yeah, which I still do.
Yeah, and I.
But I'm not trialing, so it doesn't.
No, if you can combine.
It doesn't worry me. I still like a nice dog. That shoots, that works. I don't need a kind of. I mean, we've got a couple of absolute rockets at the moment, and they're great to watch. But they don't kind of, on a day shooting, they don't do more for me than a traditional dog who's maybe a bit slower but going through the.
You probably have to do a bit more because you probably have to be on your guard a bit more if they're that much faster.
Yeah.
But so I do think I still think we've got a future in the trialing world. There's times I'm thinking, my God, where's it going? But I do think there's a future, so long as we all behave ourselves. And that could be like
you don't want to talk to me about behaving myself. That's
podcast.
Not my strong point.
So long as we all behave ourselves and we are courteous to our hosts and our keepers, and we respect what we're doing and privileged and understanding we're privileged to be where we are.
Yeah.
I think
the shame is with that, like people. I think the general world of dogs. I think people are a bit disrespectful. Whether it's of other people with their dogs. If you're walking along, you're clearly crossing the road with your dogs. People just let their dogs run up to you. If you're trying to do something with your dogs. I mean, yesterday we were at T-Bay services. We were clearly trying to let our dogs out. It was a hot day. We weren't interested in chatting to people, and people are coming along like, oh, look, it's the dogs. I'm like, I'm really sorry, but actually, can you just bugger off?
Yeah.
Because we're clearly trying to do something. And I think I was like, I would just never do that. I might stand at a distance and watch because I'm interested. I wouldn't be like, oh, look, oh, they've got doggies showing, oh, my kids just want to see. I think you're monkeys what your kids want to see. I like, you're very welcome to come to our kennels and pay for an hour of our time and see the dogs. But I think that's just happened to me yesterday. But I think that kind of thing, and I see people on shoots just not really understanding, like, you know, that someone is funding this. You know, you get quite a lot of that, oh, the guns should get their dogs. Guns paying for it. Guns to do what they like.
Absolutely.
And if, you know, that's kind of always been my motto. If a gun wants to pick up a bird in the middle of the drive and not shoot a bird, then good luck to him, because we wouldn't be here if he wasn't writing a check, or if the person who'd invited him wasn't writing a check. And I think, you know, you see this in like people walking in the countryside. Oh, my dog, I want to run my dog. Like, yeah, but you don't own the land. You know, you don't own the land. You don't know what's nesting. You don't know enough about the countryside. You don't have control of your dog. Let's just take a step back and think about it. And I think that's slightly sort of education that's being lost, which is a bit of a shame. But
yes, absolutely.
And I think that's just across the board. That's, you know, that's what it is. But I've got a couple of questions from Ash, who wanted more detailed inside information, because Ash is a sort of not an I'd say how you were when you started trialing, like interested in it, wants to do it, doesn't want to become like a professional trialing all the time, but likes to. Certainly, his dogs are up the level to do it, and he's run his dogs in tests and trials, and they're definitely able to do it. It's more just like he's liking to improve all the time, as we all are. But one is if you're going to compete with a dog or work a dog, feeding. Like, do you feed them that day? Do you feed them in the morning long before you work them? Do you not feed them? And, you know, there's people who'd be like, they need to be hungry, so they hunt harder. There's, you know, going back to the kind of wolf mentality, or if they're hungry, they'll hunt harder. I'm of the school that I can't go and do a day on a grouse moor without eating. No. So I get up early and I feed the dogs at 5:30 to make sure it's digested or whatever.
Yep.
That, you know, but everyone's got there's people who keep their dogs. I remember a chap, I can't remember his name, quite a heavy set chap. It was making me laugh because he was quite a big chap, quite a jolly kind of trialing guy. Always had springers, and English. I can't remember his name though. I mean, 20 years ago, and his dogs were like toast racks, and he was huge. And I was like, he was like, oh, I like them thin because they go faster, and I'm like, there's thin and there's thin kind of thing.
Thin and
and then also there's definitely you know, we all see fat dogs in the world.
Yeah.
So what's your view? Like, do you have a set thing, or does it vary per dog? Do you just see how it goes with that dog, or do you have a sort of a principle that you tend to stick by?
Firstly, we feed a good food. We feed dog and field, and we feed Endurance 24 literally throughout the year. And it's the only company that we've actually fed that we don't have to supplement the food during the shooting season. Because, I mean, we probably don't do as many days as others, but we would do 50 days, 60 plus maybe a beating.
Yep.
Because we love our beating. It keeps us fit, and we have a lot of fun on the 2 local shoots. I might do another 10 or so days plus of rough shooting, maybe more, maybe 20. Yep. I shouldn't really say how many more. And obviously, that's, you know, it's quite a lot of activity.
Training, and you're out
and training them and
yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
So now.
So they worked harder than most dogs.
They work harder than just a normal country pet. Now, we feed Endurance 24. We hardly have to up it during the shooting season.
Okay.
We just have to lower it a little bit in the summer. And they maintain themselves so well. And the muscle definition and the stamina is superb.
You feed them twice a day?
Well, in the winter, we feed them twice a day. Because obviously, if I'm out working in the morning, I don't want them to have the full day in the morning. So they have, this time of year, they only get once a day now, first thing in the morning. But in the winter, they have half feeds broken up. And then
So if you're going out shooting with a dog, you're going to be at a shoot for 9. You're probably not going to be doing anything till 9:30, quarter to 10.
Yeah.
What time do you feed them in the morning?
Usually about 6 to 6:30.
Okay, so you're giving them 3 hours of digestion.
Yeah.
And is that soaked food, or is that them crunching up their food?
They're crunching up their food, but we always put water with it.
Water in it.
Yeah. And usually find by, they need to have something in the stomach. That's my theory. They need to have something in the stomach. It gives them the energy, and obviously it keeps them going through the day. We don't do what some people do, give them something at lunchtime and stuff like that. They seem to maintain, they have half in the morning, half in the evening, and we don't have any problems. If we had problems, we'd have to address it. And that's everything across the board. That's the Cockers, the Labradors, and the Springers. They'll all have the same regime.
Yep.
And
Yeah, I'd say we're pretty much we're the same.
Yeah.
The same principle. So they get fed in the morning. They get fed mid-afternoon if they're at home, and when they get back if they're away. I know it's just interesting because everyone's got, and I know I could sit down with somebody else with, you know, just as much of experience as either of us, and they might say something completely different. It is very subjective, and it's just interesting what you say.
I don't like having to add lots of other things to it because it makes it more complicated. When you've got the boarding kennels to do, you don't want to be doing extra with yours. I want mine right. And as I said, when we moved on to Dog and Field was probably maybe 6 years ago, right early doors when they first started. And I'd not heard of them, and I won a bag of dog food, which was their utility crunch, which we feed to the boarders. And you can feed a boarder into today with it, and there's no upset stomachs, nothing. Okay. It's a really good balanced diet. But the, you know, with the, when I put this, one of our dogs, I thought rather than just chuck it into the boarders, you know, mix it up with their food, I will just try one dog. And so I tried one dog who was always up and down with his stools. And anyway, it seemed to suit. So I rang up the company. I said, is this the only bag you do? This is the only one you do? And they said, no, we've got a full range. So they very kindly sent me outside 2 of everything. So I then thought, right, I'm just going to stick and really do it properly. And anyway,
you were their science experiment.
Well, I think they've been going a lot longer than I have.
No, but it would have been an interesting science experiment.
Well, I rang them back and then put an order in for a ton. In fact, if they were here today, they'll be doing it today. So, but no, I'm really, really pleased with that food, and I just think it just suits, and I recommend it to as many people as possible. And to be honest, they're really happy.
Sounds like he's on commission, doesn't he?
No, I'm not on commission. I would promote it.
I've never heard Jeremy Organ doing the hard sell quite to this level. Even though I'm trying to buy a dog off him, like, oh well, we might, or we might not. But dog food. He's got shares in the business.
I just like something. If I like it, I'll promote it. So,
good.
But anyway, so that's
the other question is that Ash had is air scent or ground scent? From a judge's point of view, which do you prefer to see? And if you can explain,
right?
I mean, in layman's terms, I mean, air scent is obvious. They're heads up. They're smelling more like a pointer and a Labrador. Ground scent, they're working hard, noses on the ground. They're picking up scent that's stuck in the grass and stuff.
Yeah, right.
But what do you look for when you're training? What do you look for when you're judging somebody?
Well, let's say on a judge's point of view, because that dog should be the end product, so to speak. So, right. The way a dog works is all down to the wind, and you can speak to pointer setter people, and they will tell you exactly how a dog should work, because that's all their dogs do is hunt on the wind without adulteration from the handler. Now, if you don't adulterate your dog, and as a judge I'm walking behind somebody with a headwind, that dog should literally be casting itself into that wind all the time, because the scent of the birds or the rabbits are coming towards them. So in theory the dog shouldn't be pulling. It should literally be flatter hunting and not pulling at all, and it will find game much closer to the handler. Now, if you've got a backwind, so the wind's coming, you're walking with the wind, your dog should be able to cast itself out, say to the trailer tailgate, 5-6
20
yards,
feet.
20 feet, yeah. It would then cast out maybe there a little bit further, and then it literally then hunt back to you. So it's then hunting back to you because it's had it. The wind is coming from behind you.
Because it's always working into the wind.
Because any dog cannot find its game unless it's hunting into the wind, irrespective of what direction you're going. So you've got a cheat wind coming from the right. In theory, if it's coming from the right, from right to left, your dog should be hunting out, casting, out, casting. Now this is what I read Keith Emerson's book and couldn't understand what the hell he was on about. But obviously over the time I've
understood it more. You
leave a good dog alone, and it will show you how to work the wind.
Yeah, and whether that's a spaniel or any other breed, you know, your pet dog that smells a burger, they're walking along and they smell a burger van. You know, they will walk past the burger van, they'll get the smell, they'll go back, they'll get it again, they'll go back, and they'll just narrow in till they're like boom. And that's basically what you're.
Well, scent's a very, very strange thing, because obviously hunting with hounds gave me an opportunity, especially when we used to be called cub hunting, but autumn hunting, when you were stood outside a cover. And out will come a fox and run down between you and the cover. And then the wind would have been going for, say, left to right. So the wind was coming out of the cover towards me, stood there on stop. And the hounds would come out in full cry, yet those hounds could be running 20 yards, or 20 feet from the line of the fox. And they're in full cry. And you're thinking,
Oh, well, you mean the fox has gone down the road and the hounds
Yeah.
are here, but
And
they're getting the smell.
they're getting
Yeah.
the wind that's drifting
Yeah.
on the air. Now they're air sensors rather
Yeah.
than ground sensors. So you asked me about what would I think as a judge. If a dog's coming in, if their nose is drilled entirely to the ground, it generally means there's scent on foot scent. So they're looking for scent there. Now, a chap called Ian Bateson, he's won 2 championships. He's a very quiet man. He'll just disappear for 3 or 4 years, come out, win a novice, win an open, make it to a champion, and then disappear again. Now he's sort of not really doing it much now, but he could train dogs, and I mean, he would never say very much. You watch him, and he turned around and said to me many years ago, he said a proper game hunting dog is a little bit untidy the way
Yeah.
it works, and he said you look at these.
It's not a window wiper.
No, you look at these manicured dogs nowadays, and it's literally left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, and some of the very top handlers, well, I will not mention their names, but some of the top handlers will literally tell you what is the point of teaching your dog or allowing your dog to hunt the wind, because most modern judges would think they're out of control.
Yeah.
And unfortunately he's right, because these modern day trialers don't shoot over their dogs anymore. They go on training days where they have paid guns already shooting, and it's usually on cover crops. Well, you know you don't have to know where to find game in a cover crop, because it generally breaks away in front of you. It's not being found by you, or it's been disturbed by you.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're a rough shooter down a hedge, fallen down tree, this, that, and you would move around to find, and the dog would do the same. See, if it's in a woodland and there's not a lot of scent, he said, and I will watch this, and I've seen this over the years, a dog will then cruise the ground. So it will lift its head a little bit until it suddenly hits a pocket of scent. All of a sudden, whop, out goes the pheasant.
So what I'm getting from that is that air scenting is the kind of the more like scanning the horizon, kind of from our point of view. We're looking for something. There it is. We then hone in on it, and then we're going into ground scent.
Now, I would have a lot of modern trialers turn around and say, I don't know what I'm talking about. But I've shot over so many dogs over the years, and I've been privileged enough to judge all over the world, where, especially in Scandinavia, where they don't have the amount of game we have. They don't put the game down like us.
No.
So their dogs are so much more natural. And you watch those dogs unadulterated finding game. That'll teach you more than anything you'll learn in England.
Or watching, as you go back to, you're all watching pointers.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's wonderful to
I've
watch
not,
them.
I've been lucky enough to do a lot of, wild game shooting in America, shooting quail.
Yeah.
And I mean, huge areas of ground in Texas. And you've got guy over here with 2 pointers, guy here with 2 points, guy here with 2 pointers. And you watch them all, and they're going like that because the wind's going towards us. And then we get round a corner, and then they change the way they're, and you watch them all, and they're all, and they're basically, in my view, good pointers are semi out of control all the time.
Oh yeah, very much so. Yes. I agree.
It's slightly a wing and a prayer. It's a bit like a pack of hounds.
Yeah, it is.
You kind of hope you can stop them on a road, but not sure. They're not a spaniel or a Labrador who you got that stop whistle in.
No.
And I've seen it in Texas. I've seen it in Georgia, but I also do a lot of rough shooting in the north in the States, where they're just guys who like going out hunting, which their version of what we would call rough shooting. They're field hunting or hunting, and they let their dogs get on with it.
Yeah.
And the dog, as long as the dog's not getting too far ahead, if it's getting out of range, I mean, way over that fence, they'll be like, "Oh, Pete, turn it back." But basically, the dog's kind of, as you say, messy. It looks scruffy.
Yeah, it must
but
be. But they find
you
the
go
game.
back through that strip of
And you don't find
sorghum,
anything.
whatever. There's nothing left.
No.
Because the dog's had a chance to work it all out, rather than
definitely.
this, window wiper fashion. I mean, we can be guilty of teaching people and teaching dogs about this,
Yeah.
and not explaining enough because we don't want to kind of get too complicated.
Yeah.
Because when you're teaching somebody who just wants an amateur dog
Yes.
to do an amateur level of shooting, you can get overcomplicated. And we will always start that lesson going into the wind. But I think probably we don't put enough emphasis and understanding on this is why we're doing it into the dog naturally to do that.
Yes.
And Ash in the demo was teaching his dog as a young dog to turn
Yes.
into the wind kind of thing,
Yeah.
away from him. But I think there's probably, I mean, I say our biggest negative about what we do is we don't get the opportunity to go in depth enough with enough people. We get too many people who come along, they want that magic wand, they have a few lessons, and I'm sure you get the same. And you'd love it if those people came back every fortnight, put in loads of work while you're away, came back when they, after the odd fortnight, and go, "I'm really sorry I've been away, I haven't really done anything." can we do a quick recap, whatever? And you know that they're still going to be coming to you in 2.5 years' time.
Yes.
And you're going to be improving. And we've got a group of people who come to us for a lesson who are very much in that mindset. But it's very small relative to the lessons and the training that we do. It's a very small amount, but it's definitely one of the most enjoyable things to see, is because you're like, they're listening. They really, really want to learn more. And we learn from them because they're like, oh, I went to this other person and they told us this. And why would you say this is right or wrong or whatever? And they've taken it all on board. But I would say there's not that many people like that.
No, I do think that there's a lot of mixed messages do come from a lot of these professionals that you see advertising on Facebook. I don't think Facebook's done gun dog training any favours.
No.
And there's a lot of mixed messages, and you hear. But generally, as I think you've said, and I've said many a time, really source a good trainer and stick with him or her, and basically, enjoy it and question. I think you said that today when you were doing your demonstration. Question your trainer. Ask him. Make sure. Is that right? Are you happy? Why are you doing it?
Putting your hand up in class.
Yeah.
We all tell our children to put your hands up in class. Ask if you don't understand. The teacher's not going to get cross, and if they do, they're a shit teacher. But ask a question, and I think people need to do that more. And I think people are. It's tricky though, because I think people are intimidated, and I don't know why. I can be a bit rude, but it's a shame, because it's like, actually, I'd love you. If someone asked me a question, none of us, Ash, you, me, none of us would ever go, oh, what a stupid question.
No.
We'd be like, oh, it's an interesting question. Even if we're thinking, oh my God, they really don't understand this.
No.
We're like, we've done something wrong. And I think maybe they're a bit, they've been to people before who were like, no, you don't talk about it, shut up, kind of thing. And I'm like, yeah, but they're not a teacher. And something I say to people again in the demo sometimes is, just because someone has won lots of field trials doesn't mean they're a teacher. If I want Freddie to become the world's next top racing driver, I'm not going to get Lewis Hamilton to train him. I'm going to get Lewis Hamilton's blooming instructor to train him. Yeah. Because Lewis Hamilton may be a great driver, but can he teach? I don't know. But I goddamn know that his instructor can.
Yeah.
And it's the same with clay shooting. Do I want to be taught by George Digweed? I don't know. I don't know whether he's a good coach. But if he's got someone who's a coach as him, that's the person I want to go to. And I think that's where people miss, because people come to me and they go, oh, I went to this guy and he was very professional. He'd won all this, that, and the other. I'm like, I'm sure he's great with his dogs, but could he teach you? Did you learn anything? Did you understand it? They're like, oh no, we haven't got a clue. So
no, that's very true.
Anyway, I said I promised you only half an hour, and I think I've taken up 50 minutes. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jill, for just our back support, answering the questions that Jeremy couldn't remember.
That's right.
Alzheimer's.
Yeah, and all that. Catch you up as well.
I know everything. I move too fast, Jeremy. Nothing catches me up.
But no, thank you very much for inviting me.
Really fun, really enjoyable, and enjoy the rest of your game fair, and we'll see you soon. No doubt.
You too. Thank you very much. Thanks.